The Resolute cut through the darkness of space like a silver arrow, leaving the grand capital of the Council behind. Stars streaked past the observation deck, but Elias's focus remained on the holographic star map projected before him. Each blinking point marked a system they might visit, some friendly, some dangerous. Liara stood beside him, her eyes scanning the map. "Do you really think any system will help us?" she asked quietly. Her voice was calm, but Elias could hear the worry underneath. She had grown up protected by armies, advisors, and wealth. Now she was exposed, traveling with only one human and a small crew that trusted her because of him. Elias smiled faintly. "Some will help. Others will try to stop us. But no one's actions are set in stone. Every choice has consequences. Every risk can lead to victory or disaster." Liara nodded. "I suppose this is what leadership feels like without protection, without rules." "Exactly," Elias said. "And it's what humans do best, adapt." Their first stop was the neutral world of Terrell, a mining planet on the edge of Council space. Rumors suggested that evidence of the conspiracy against Liara's family could be found there, hidden among the miners' secret archives. It was not a friendly planet, but neutral enough that pirates and nobles rarely interfered directly. As the Resolute entered the planet's atmosphere, alarms suddenly blared. Small interceptor ships appeared, racing toward them from the shadows of the asteroid belts surrounding Terrell. "Pirates," Elias said, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. "Or mercenaries sent to stop us." Liara's eyes narrowed. "Then we fight." Elias shook his head gently. "We don't fight unless we have to. Humans prefer clever solutions first." With a few precise maneuvers, Elias guided the ship through the asteroid field. The interceptors struggled to follow, colliding with rocks in each other. The Resolute dodged, turned, and vanished among the twisting paths. Liara watched, amazed. "I have seen fleets, battleships, warships, but nothing moves like this." Elias grinned. "Humans rely on creativity more than size. Adaptability is stronger than sheer force." When they finally landed on Terrell, the planet was harsh and barren. Red dust blew across the settlement, and the mining colonies looked more like rugged camps than organized cities. Yet in this unforgiving place, people survived, and some remembered things the Council wanted forgotten. They met with an old archivist named Varen, a wiry alien with sharp eyes. He had once served the Council but had retired to Terrell, disillusioned with noble politics. At first he was wary of the princess and the human. "Why should I help you?" he asked. "Humans have no standing here, and princesses bring trouble." Elias stepped forward calmly. "Because the truth matters. Because courage matters. And because when no one stands for what is right, someone must. We stand." Varen studied him, the skepticism in his eyes fading. "You are different from other humans I have seen." Liara nodded. "We need your help. Will you show us what, you know?" Varen sighed and led them through the dusty halls of the archive. Ancient records, maps, and hidden files were stored in rows of metallic shelves. "Here," he said, pointing to a sealed vault, "is evidence of the Council's plans against your family. Be careful, some of this is dangerous, some of it can get you killed." For hours, Liara and Elias sifted through the files. Each discovery was more shocking than the last. Secret alliances, plots of assassination, and attempts to weaken Liara's position. Every noble in the Council had a hand in some part of the conspiracy, though some were more deeply involved than others. "It's worse than I imagined," Liara said, her fingers tracing the edges of the holographic documents. "The Council doesn't just ignore the danger, they create it." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's why we act now. Humans may be new to this galaxy, but we don't back down. We find a way, and so will you." Their discussion was cut short when alarms sounded again. Someone had reported their presence. Mercenaries, hired by the nobles, were descending on the settlement. Elias and Liara had no choice. They moved quickly, using the archive's hidden tunnels to escape into the open desert. Blaster fire streaked across the red sky, and the sound of engines roared nearby. Yet Elias remained calm. Follow my lead. Adapt, move fast, and trust your instincts. Liara followed, her training as a princess helping her navigate danger. But Elias's methods were different. Unpredictable, creative, human. They ducked behind rock formations, used abandoned mining, carts as shields, and improvised traps to slow their pursuers. By the time they reached their ship, several mercenaries were incapacitated and the rest had fled. Liara was breathing heavily, her armor scuffed and dusty, yet she smiled. I did not think I would survive this, she admitted. Elias chuckled. You survived because you adapted. You learned to move beyond titles and privileges. That is true leadership. For the first time, Liara saw herself not just as a princess, but as a leader, a fighter, someone who could make a difference. And she realized that her trust in Elias was not misplaced. As they departed Terrell, the planet fading into the distance, Liara turned to him. Why did you risk yourself for me? Humans are not part of this council, not part of this galaxy. You could have returned to Earth safely. Elias looked at her, eyes steady. Because some things are worth more than safety. Honor, courage, loyalty, and the right to stand beside someone who fights for what is right. That is what humans do, and that is why I am here. The journey ahead would not be easy. Each system held dangers, hostile fleets, treacherous nobles, and unknown forces. Yet with every challenge, Elias and Liara grew stronger, more confident. Their alliance, formed, in necessity, became one of trust, courage, and determination. In the weeks that followed, they traveled to hidden planets, met secret allies, and evaded relentless enemies. Elias's human ingenuity turned simple ships into clever decoys, and Liara's growing leadership inspired those who had once doubted her. Every victory, no matter how small, sent ripples through the galaxy. People began to whisper, humans were not just outsiders, they were capable, fearless, and cunning in ways no one expected. One evening, as they rested in a safe orbit above a neutral world, Liara stood on the observation deck watching the stars. Do you ever fear that we might fail? She asked. Elias leaned against the rail, eyes scanning the horizon. Fear is natural. Everyone feels it. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. And that is what we do. Together. Liara smiled faintly. Together, she repeated. Their bond, forged in the fires of danger, grew stronger with each passing day. And though the galaxy remained a place of uncertainty, of betrayal and conflict, they had discovered something powerful. When two beings from completely different worlds stand together, they can challenge even the most entrenched powers. The Resolute glided silently into the darkness, carrying two determined figures toward their next destination. The path ahead was fraught with danger, yet it also held promise. The galaxy was watching, and slowly, the story of a human who stood beside a princess began to spread. By the time they reached the outer rim of council space, whispers of their deeds had already arrived. A human and a princess, daring, fearless, and unstoppable. Some called it foolish, others called it inspiring, but all began to realize that something had changed. The galaxy could no longer ignore humans, and the era of courage over privilege was just beginning. Elias turned to Liara as they prepared for the next jump. Ready? He asked. Liara nodded, eyes gleaming. Ready. And together, they leapt into the unknown, facing danger, forging alliances, and proving that even in a galaxy ruled by fear and power, courage could light the way. The dangerous alliance had begun, and with it the first spark of hope for a galaxy that had turned away from its own heroes. The stars stretched endlessly before the Resolute as it sailed through the neutral zones of the galaxy. Captain Elias Munro stood at the helm, scanning the sensors for any sign of danger. It had been weeks since their daring escape from Terrell, and both he and Princess Liara were learning to rely on each other more than ever. Liara walked quietly behind him, watching the flickering lights of distant star systems. Every day I see how different humans are, she said softly. We think we understand courage, but you do it naturally even when the odds are against you. Elias smiled faintly. Humans have a saying, courage is measured by what you do when no one else will. Most creatures in this galaxy rely on status, power, or fear. Humans? We stand when others turn away. Liara considered this, feeling a mixture of admiration and curiosity. The more time she spent with him, the more she realized that Elias's courage was not reckless bravado. It was careful, precise, and rooted in loyalty. In many ways, it reminded her of the ideals she had been taught as a princess, but put into action with skill and confidence. Their next stop was the small planet of Voron, known for its skilled engineers and tactical minds. Though it was politically neutral, many nobles had dismissed Voron as insignificant. Elias, however, saw opportunity. We need allies, he told Liara, and not just followers. We need people who can think, fight, and innovate. Voron has both. Upon landing, they were greeted with suspicion. The Voron people were cautious, wary of strangers, especially those who claimed to oppose the council. Elias stepped forward, as he always did, with calm confidence. We seek knowledge, cooperation, and the chance to right wrongs, he said. We are not asking for blind loyalty. We are asking for reason and courage. A council elder named Rethus studied them. His skin shimmered faintly under the planet's twin suns, and his eyes were sharp with intelligence. Why should we care about your struggle? Humans are young and princesses. Well, they are often symbols, not leaders. Liara's voice was steady but firm. I am not asking for blind obedience. I am asking for truth, justice, and safety. And those who stand with us will not be risking themselves for a symbol. They will be acting for the future of the galaxy. Rethus's gaze flickered to Elias. And you, human? Why follow her? Elias did not hesitate. Because courage and loyalty matter more than titles. Because when the galaxy ignores injustice, someone must act. That someone is me, and today it is her. There was a long silence. Then Rethus nodded slowly. Very well. But know this. If you fail, the consequences will be severe. We do not forgive failure lightly. Liara allowed herself a small smile. We do not intend to fail. Over the following days, Elias and Liara worked closely with Voron's engineers and strategists. They studied star maps, analyzed fleet movements, and devised plans that relied not on overwhelming power, but on clever tactics. Liara was a quick learner, absorbing Elias's strategies and combining them with her knowledge of diplomacy and court intrigue. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Elias and Liara trained with a small Voron fleet. Blaster drills, evasive maneuvers, and coordinated attacks became routine. Liara's skills improved rapidly, and her confidence grew with each success. You're changing, Princess, Elias said, as they watched a simulation of a council fleet being outmaneuvered. You're becoming more than a princess. You're becoming a leader people can follow. Liara's smile was quiet but proud. I'm learning from the best teacher, human, Elias chuckled. I hope you're also learning to trust yourself. As their alliance grew stronger, news began to spread across the galaxy. Whispers reached planets and systems that had long been ignored by the Council. The story of a human standing beside a princess, fighting not for power but for justice, intrigued many. Some planets that had suffered under the oppressive policies of the nobles began sending secret messages of support. However, their growing influence did not go unnoticed. The Council, furious at the rising threat, sent a diplomatic envoy to Voron, attempting to intimidate the planet into surrendering Elias and Liara. The Council envoy arrived with threats, veiled warnings, and displays of military might. Liara stepped forward, facing them without fear. We will not bow to intimidation. We will not hand over those who seek justice. The people of Voron are free to choose their allies, just as all civilizations should be. Elias added calmly. We do not threaten, we do not demand. We ask for reason, courage, and fairness. Those who side with fear will never succeed, and those who stand for justice will never be forgotten. The envoy left in anger, but the people of Voron were impressed. Their respect for Liara and Elias grew, and with it their willingness to fight alongside them. The alliance, once fragile, began to solidify. One night, Liara and Elias sat on the observation deck, looking out at the endless stars. Do you think the galaxy will ever accept humans as equals? Liara asked quietly. Elias considered this, watching the glowing nebulae in the distance. Not all at once, he said. But courage speaks louder than titles. One act, one decision can change how people see you. Humans are new here, yes, but we are capable. And when humans act with honor, others notice. Liara nodded, feeling a spark of hope. I have been taught all my life about power, privilege, and influence. But you show me something different. Loyalty, courage, and action. That is more powerful than any title. The next morning, they received a message from a distant mining colony that had long been oppressed by one of the Council's noble families. The miners were offering resources, supplies, and even soldiers to join their cause. It was a small but significant victory. Humans and aliens, once separated by fear and misunderstanding, were now standing together for a common purpose. Elias and Liara traveled from system to system, meeting others who had suffered under the Council's rule. Each meeting strengthened their coalition, and each small victory built respect for humans across the galaxy. What had begun as a simple act of courage, Elias standing beside Liara when all others turned away, was now growing into a movement. Yet not all challenges were external. Even within their coalition, disagreements arose. Some alien leaders questioned whether a human could be trusted, or whether a young princess was capable of leading. Tensions flared, arguments erupted, and doubt threatened to undermine their progress. Elias addressed these moments with patience. Trust is earned, not given. We show our allies that we are capable, and that our purpose is just. Action speaks louder than words. Liara, too, grew in confidence. She mediated disputes, negotiated compromises, and proved that leadership was more than command. It was vision, empathy, and courage. The coalition began to see her as a true leader, not just a princess. Weeks passed, and the seeds of respect took root. Planets that had once ignored humans now welcomed them. Aliens who had once doubted a young princess now followed her lead. And in quiet moments, Elias watched Liara grow stronger, realizing that courage was contagious. One evening, as the Resolute approached the edge of Council space, Liara spoke quietly. We have done much, but the Council will not wait. They will strike back soon. Elias nodded. And when they do, we will be ready. We have something they cannot understand. Loyalty, courage, and the willingness to act when others will not. That is our greatest weapon. Liara's gaze hardened. Then we must ensure we are strong, united, and ready for whatever comes. The galaxy will see that humans are not weak, and that leadership is earned through action, not birth. As they prepared for the next stage of their journey, Elias and Liara stood together on the observation deck, looking at the stars stretching endlessly before them. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and possibilities, but one truth was becoming clear. When courage stands against fear and loyalty stands against betrayal, even the smallest force could inspire change, and change was coming. The seeds of respect, planted in the hearts of allies, were growing. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans, once dismissed as newcomers, were forces to be reckoned with, and the princess, once isolated and betrayed, had found her true place, not as a figurehead but as a leader who inspired loyalty, courage, and hope. Together, human and princess, they would continue their journey. The road ahead was uncertain, but their bond was unbreakable. And as the Resolute glided through the endless expanse of stars, they knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The dangerous alliance had not only survived, it was growing stronger, and its influence was spreading. The galaxy's eyes were opening, one system at a time, to the power of courage, the strength of loyalty, and the undeniable force of humans standing beside those who fight for justice. The galaxy had begun to notice. Reports of a human and a young princess traveling together, gathering allies and defying the Council, spread quickly from system to system. For some it was inspiring. For others it was infuriating. The Council could no longer ignore them. In the heart of Council space, a meeting was held among the most powerful nobles. The room crackled with tension, voices rising as they debated how to stop Liara and Elias. One noble slammed his fist on the table. They have no right! A human, an outsider leading our enemies. Strike them down before their influence spreads. Another spoke cautiously. We risk starting a war. They have allies now. If we move too soon, we might lose more than we gain. The first noble's eyes blazed. Then we will use force. Send the fleets. Crush their coalition. Show the galaxy that the Council cannot be challenged. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Elias monitored the situation. Sensors picked up multiple fleet movements converging toward their location. "They've decided to act," he said quietly. Liara's face was steady, but her hands gripped the rail tightly. "We expected this," she said. "We knew that building a coalition would draw attention. We cannot avoid conflict forever." Elias nodded. "No, but we can control how we respond. Humans do not rely on size or numbers alone. We rely on ingenuity, speed, and unpredictability. That is our advantage." The first engagement came in the shadow of a dense asteroid belt. The Council's fleets moved like predators, their massive ships filling the void with ominous power. Smaller fighters swooped ahead, scanning for weaknesses. Liara watched, her breath steady. "We need to protect our allies first. Draw them into the belt. Use the terrain to our advantage." Elias adjusted the Resolute's trajectory, weaving between asteroids with practiced skill. "Exactly. We don't have the numbers, but we have the advantage of movement and surprise. Watch and learn." As Council fighters pursued them, Elias executed daring maneuvers using the asteroids as cover and bait. The enemy ships collided with rocks, their formations disrupted. Foreign engineers aboard support vessels fired precise energy pulses, disabling several cruisers without destroying them. Liara coordinated her allies, directing them to positions that maximized both defense and offense. For hours, the battle raged. Blaster fire streaked across the darkness, engines roared, and explosions lit up the void. Yet through every attack, Elias and Liara moved with calm precision, turning chaos into opportunity. In the middle of the battle, a Council strike team attempted a boarding maneuver on the Resolute. Liara's eyes narrowed. "They want to capture us alive. We cannot let that happen." Elias guided the ship into a tight spiral, dodging the boarding craft, then used a clever trick, projecting a false energy signature to confuse sensors. The enemy miscalculated and the boarding ships collided with each other. Liara's small team of elite guards neutralized the few survivors with non-lethal precision. Later, in the quiet after the skirmish, Liara examined the battle reports. "They are stronger than I expected," she admitted. "The Council will not give up easily." Elias placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They underestimated you at first. Now they see the threat you pose. But this is what humans do best: we adapt. Every move they make, we learn from it and improve." The victory was temporary. The Council regrouped, sending a massive fleet toward a key system in the Coalition's territory. This fleet was larger, more organized, and commanded by a noble who had once been considered unbeatable. Elias called a council of allies aboard the Resolute. "We cannot fight them head-on," he explained. "But we can outthink them. We will divide their attention, strike at weak points, and protect the systems that matter most." Liara stood beside him, confident now in her leadership. "And we will show the galaxy that courage and loyalty are stronger than fear. That even against overwhelming power, we can prevail if we stand together." The plan was risky. Smaller strike teams would engage the enemy to distract them, while the main fleet would hit supply lines, forcing the Council fleet to divide. Timing had to be perfect. Coordination, precision, and trust in one another were essential. The battle began. Fleets collided in deep space, energy beams cutting through darkness. Liara coordinated her forces with calm authority, issuing orders clearly and decisively. Elias led a daring maneuver, guiding a small human-led squadron to intercept reinforcements. Their speed and ingenuity allowed them to outmaneuver much larger ships, disabling key weapons systems. Despite the chaos, the Coalition's trust in Liara and Elias grew. Each victory, each clever tactic proved that their leadership was not based on titles but on skill, courage, and strategy. But victory came at a cost. One of the Allied planets suffered heavy damage when a Council fleet broke through their defenses. Casualties were significant, and for the first time, Liara felt the weight of real responsibility. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You cannot save everyone," he said gently, "but you can inspire those who remain. You can fight to protect what is possible." "That is enough," Liara nodded, swallowing hard. "I will not fail, not now. Not when so many depend on us." In the days that followed, the Coalition regrouped. Repair crews worked tirelessly, and engineers designed defensive measures to prevent another direct assault. Liara and Elias trained their forces, sharing strategies and tactics, strengthening both skill and morale. As they prepared for the next confrontation, Tensions within the coalition arose. Some aliens doubted humans, questioning their loyalty and methods. Others questioned Liara's decisions, still seeing her as a young princess rather than a leader. Elias addressed these concerns with calm authority. Trust is earned through action, not titles. We have proven our ability to protect, to fight, and to lead. Those who doubt us will see the results. Liara, growing stronger in her role, mediated disputes, reminding her allies that unity was essential. We face a common enemy, she said firmly. If we allow fear or doubt to divide us, we will lose everything. Stand together, and we will prevail. The coalition's unity held, and preparations were completed for a final confrontation with the Council's forces. The Council fleet, confident in its superiority, approached a strategically important system near the outer rim. Liara and Elias led the coalition's forces into position, using the environment, asteroid fields, nebulae, and gravitational anomalies to their advantage. The Council's fleet, massive and heavily armed, assumed they could crush the smaller coalition easily. But humans and their allies had learned. Every move was calculated, every tactic tested, every ship and soldier ready. When the Council struck, they were met not with fear but with precision, strategy, and unity. The battle was fierce. Energy beams lit the void, ships twisted and turned, and explosions rocked the darkness. Elias piloted the Resolute with skill, guiding it through enemy lines, disabling weapons and saving allied ships. Liara coordinated from the flagship, issuing commands that balanced offense and defense. Hours passed like minutes. The coalition's ingenuity, courage, and coordination slowly turned the tide. Key Council ships were disabled, their fleet divided, and morale faltered. Finally, the Council's commander called a retreat, acknowledging defeat for the first time. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. A human and a princess, once underestimated and abandoned, had led a coalition to victory against overwhelming odds. Their courage and leadership had earned the respect of allies and inspired hope in countless systems. As the smoke cleared and fleets repaired, Liara turned to Elias. "We have won this battle," she said quietly, "but the Council will not give up." Elias smiled, his eyes calm but determined. "No, they won't. But now the galaxy knows that courage, loyalty, and intelligence can overcome power. And that is a lesson no noble will forget." Liara nodded, her confidence stronger than ever. She was no longer just a princess. She was a leader, a strategist, and an inspiration. And Elias was more than an ally. He was a reminder that humanity, once dismissed, could change the course of the galaxy. Together, they prepared for the next stage of their journey. Battles awaited, but so did victories. The galaxy had begun to see that courage and loyalty mattered more than titles and fear. And as the Resolute soared into the stars, Elias and Liara knew that the greatest test of all was yet to come. The clash of power had begun, and humanity had proven that when they stand beside what is right, even the impossible can be achieved.